12 months ago, the Boston Celtics were on top of the basketball world. Championship number 18, record-breaking, historic, and emotional. For a franchise haunted by near misses and postseason heartbreak, this was the moment they'd been chasing for over a decade. Tatum and Brown finally broke through. The roster looked bulletproof. Fans, analysts, and even rival teams expected a dynasty run. But then just one off-season later, the entire thing collapsed. Not because they got old, not because they got outplayed, but because they made the conscious decision to tear it all down. And the wildest part? It might have been brilliant. 2024 was the year it all came together for Boston. After years of being almost there, the Celtics finally broke through, and they did it in dominant fashion. Jayson Tatum played like a top 5 superstar. Jaylen Brown finally found consistency. Porzingis stayed healthy enough to matter. And the additions of Jrue Holiday and Derek White gave them a backcourt that could guard just about anyone. They weren't just talented, they were deep, balanced, and lethal on both ends of the floor. Al Horford gave them a veteran anchor. Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser added steady bench scoring. Every piece had a purpose, and it all clicked at the right time. And they weren't cheap either. Boston had the 4th highest payroll in the league and paid tens of millions in luxury tax. But no one cared. Why? Because they won. They did what every team is trying to do, and it looked like the beginning of something much bigger. After hoisting the trophy in 2024, Boston didn't slow down. They hit the gas. This wasn't going to be a one-and-done team. They were building a dynasty. First came the extensions. Jrue Holiday signed for 4 years and $135 million. Derek White inked a 4-year, $125 million deal. And Jayson Tatum? A jaw-dropping 5-year, $315 million contract, the largest in franchise history. Altogether, that core alone cost nearly $600 million. But again, nobody flinched. The fans were on board. The media loved it. The team had just won a title, and they looked even deeper heading into the new season. Every major contributor was locked in, healthy, and motivated. They weren't just spending to keep the band together, they were investing in continuity, chemistry, and a championship formula. For a moment, it felt like Boston had cracked the code. And with the East still figuring itself out, the Celtics were seen by many as the favorites to repeat. But all that momentum? It hinged on one brutal variable: health. Everything started to unravel in the 2025 playoffs. Kristaps Porzingis, who was already dealing with lingering issues, missed the entire postseason. That was tough, but not devastating. They had survived without him before, but what came next? It flipped the entire franchise upside down. In Game 4 against the Knicks, Jayson Tatum went down. Achilles tear. Just like that, the Celtics lost their most important player. Not just their top scorer, but their best defender, their rebounder, their offensive initiator, the glue that held the team together. And he wasn't just out for the playoffs. He was done for the entire next season. This wasn't a wait a few months kind of injury, it was a full year minimum. And for a player like Tatum, who had built his game on mobility, balance, and versatility, it raised questions no one in Boston wanted to ask. The Celtics suddenly went from a top-tier contender to a team with no identity. They weren't bad, but without Tatum, they weren't good enough to win it all either. And in the NBA's new financial landscape, not good enough is the most expensive place to be. In the past, a team like Boston might have tried to hold the line, maybe wait for Tatum to recover, keep the core together, and make another run a year later. But 2025 wasn't like the past, not with the new collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, in full effect. This wasn't just a set of tweaks, it was a game changer, and the biggest nightmare for contenders was something called the Second Apron. It's a hard spending line, and once you cross it, the league starts locking doors. You lose key tools, like the mid-level exception. You can't combine contracts and trades. You're banned from sending picks more than 7 years out. And worst of all, the penalties stack if you stay over that apron for multiple years. You basically become trapped with the roster you have, and if that roster doesn't include your best player for an entire season, you're cooked. The Celtics had been living in that high spending zone for a while, but now the math no longer worked. No Tatum, no title window. No way to justify paying tens of millions in penalties just to run a mid-tier team into the ground. So, Boston made the difficult decision. They didn't just want to avoid the second apron, they wanted to get well under it. Because the closer you are to the line, the less flexibility you have. And if Tatum wasn't going to touch the court until late 2026 at the earliest, the only move left was to reset. The teardown came fast and cold. First, Kristaps Porzingis shipped off to the Atlanta Hawks in what was essentially a salary dump. The Celtics received Jrue Holiday and a second-round pick. That's it. No young asset, no high pick. Just cap relief. Porzingis had become a luxury they couldn't afford, especially since he was set to become a free agent the following summer, and his injury history wasn't getting any better. Next up, Jrue Holiday. He had just signed a major extension, but at age 34, and with declining explosiveness, his contract quickly turned from an asset into a burden. Boston traded him to Portland for Anthony Simons, a high-volume scorer who plays zero defense. The second he landed in Boston, the Celtics started shopping him again. No one bit. They didn't stop there. Instead of bringing back key free agents, the Celtics just let them walk. Al Horford, gone. Depth at center, gone. They didn't even make half-hearted offers. Why? Because getting under that second apron was the only priority. By the end of the summer, half the championship rotation was gone. Not lost to injury, not retired. Traded or dumped. Not because they weren't good, but because Boston was willing to take a year on the chin to avoid years of financial gridlock. So after all the moves, who's still wearing green? Let's count. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Jayson Tatum watching from the sidelines in a walking boot. That's it. That's your core. The front court? Well, if you're a Celtics fan, you might want to look away. Luka Garza, solid touch around the rim, but can't guard a chair. Xavier Tillman, strong, scrappy, but undersized. Neemias Queta, big body, but raw and inconsistent. Jrue Holiday, best known for hitting open threes, now possibly your starting four. Boston went from having a versatile, two-way, top-5 rotation to scraping together minutes with fringe rotation players. And it's not just a talent drop, it's a structure problem. Tatum made things work. He could run the offense, defend wings and bigs, draw double teams, and make life easier for everyone. Without him, Jaylen Brown becomes the number one option, and that's a role he's never fully thrived in. Derek White can handle more, sure, but now he's doing more creating than complementing. The spacing collapses. The ball sticks. The defense loses its edge. Fans want to believe this team can stay afloat. Maybe a play-in berth? Maybe over .500? But take a hard look. Remove Tatum, Porzingis, Horford, and Holiday from your 2024 title roster. What's left isn't just thin, it's exposed. Best case scenario? They sneak into the play-in and get bounced early. Worst case? They spiral fast and finish bottom 4 in the East. And based on the depth chart, that second outcome is looking more and more likely. And here's the kicker. Boston almost pushed the reset button even further. Around the time of the 2025 NBA draft, rumors began swirling. The Celtics were reportedly in trade discussions with the Utah Jazz. The centerpiece? Jaylen Brown. And who's running things in Utah? Danny Ainge, former Celtics GM and the architect of their original Tatum Brown core. The whispers were loud. Ainge wanted his guy back. Now, it's unclear how serious those talks got. Maybe Boston was just testing the waters. Maybe the offers weren't good enough. But the fact that the conversations happened at all tells you everything. The Celtics were clearly open to moving Brown if the price was right. And here's the thing. Financially, it would have made sense. Brown is owed nearly $60 million a year. Without Tatum, that contract becomes harder to justify, especially if the team isn't competing. Moving Brown would have opened up cap space, brought in draft capital, and pushed the reset button even harder. But in the end, they held back. Maybe they still believe in the Brown-Tatum pairing once Tatum is healthy. Or maybe they think Brown's trade value will increase by the deadline, especially if he puts up big numbers on a bad team. Either way, Boston was this close to turning the lights off completely. The teardown wasn't just dramatic, it was almost total. So if the Celtics knowingly gutted their roster, passed on keeping their vets, and even flirted with trading Jaylen Brown, what exactly are they doing? The answer, they're playing the long game. Boston owns their 2026 first-round pick completely unprotected. No swaps, no clauses, and that 2026 draft class, it's shaping up to be loaded. Scouts are already calling it one of the deepest in recent memory, with multiple franchise-altering prospects projected to go in the top 5. And here's where it gets interesting. If the Celtics finish in the bottom 5 of the East, and there's a real chance they do, they could walk away with the top 3 pick. That means adding a blue-chip rookie talent on a cost-controlled contract. Combine that with a healthy Jayson Tatum returning in 2026-27, Jaylen Brown still in his prime, and Derek White under contract. Suddenly, you've got a revamped core without the massive tax burden that crushed their flexibility before. Even better, by resetting now, Boston escapes the second apron trap. They regain access to the full mid-level exception. They can once again trade multiple contracts together. They can pursue deals without restrictions. In short, they get their tools back. It's not tanking, it's not waving the white flag, it's strategic retreat. They're stepping back not to rebuild, but to reload with better positioning, better finances, and a better shot at a sustainable title window. And if they hit on that 2026 pick, the rest of the league should be nervous. From the outside, it looks like the Celtics collapsed. One year they're on top of the world, the next they're starting George Niang and Xavier Tillman. Fans are confused. Media's already counting them out, and for most teams, this kind of drop-off would signal panic. But Boston? This wasn't panic. It was deliberate. The front office saw the writing on the wall. Tatum's injury, the CBA's new restrictions, the financial cliff they were standing on. They didn't flinch. They stepped back, ripped the roster down to its core, and set their sights on 2 years from now. And that takes guts. It takes long-term vision in a league obsessed with short-term results. It means enduring a rough season, maybe even a brutal one, with the belief that it's all building towards something better. The 2025 Celtics are going to lose a lot of games. They're going to take some hits. But this isn't a team without a plan. It's a team waiting for the right moment to strike again. And when they do, they'll be younger, cheaper, healthier, and if it all goes right, scarier than ever. So if you're ready to write off the Celtics now, just make sure you don't forget them 2 seasons from now. Because Boston might not be dead. They might just be hibernating.